This is deep dish, right?
Yeah, well, let's get deep.
So I'm going deep on both sides.
Rafiah, welcome to the platform. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm glad to be here.
New year.
Yes. Yes.
I'm excited about this conversation. I'm excited to dive in to all things just related to the work that you do.
Okay.
How you feeling?
I'm feeling. I'm excited.
Okay. You excited?
I'm excited.
And like I was telling you before, like I think because of the work you do,
Yeah.
Your personal journey, your intimate relationship with the work, I just think it hit a little differently.
Mm-hmm.
You know, in the building, the community building
Yeah.
that you do because of that, hits a little differently. And I just think people just need to be aware of how that looks, what that looks like, and what that means.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And I'm gonna jump straight into it. I think it's a good
Okay.
pivot point because let's get straight into gun violence.
Okay.
Right? Let's get straight into it. Most of the times, many of us see gun violence, especially now on social media. Like, you know, we see it. Many of us may be desensitized to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we see
Yeah.
it and we say, oh, okay, another person has been killed.
Yeah.
Whether it's by another community member
Uh-huh.
or if there's a police officer involved,
Okay.
drunk driver, whatever it may be, right? But we're gonna see the gun violence in this point, right? It's a
Yeah.
lot of harm that's being done
Yeah.
at that point. And both people are really victims in a
Yeah.
lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of times we see that and we go on with our lives, and especially if we're not directly
Yeah.
impacted by it, right?
Yeah. Definitely.
But that's not the case for everybody.
Yeah.
And so I want you to take us through, if you will,
Okay.
kind of like what that looks like, but also what is that restorative justice work? What is
Okay.
that? What is that balancing and trying to deal with that look like, right? And because because that's like a lot of us, even if we had a friend or something that's
Yeah.
been a victim of gunfire, it's still different, you know, when it's like a family member, somebody,
Yeah.
an immediate family member,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so can you walk us through that a little bit?
Well, actually, I probably was one of those people that was at least out of sight, out of mind for the last couple of decades. I mean, I was a teenage parent. I had 4 kids before I was 21. And so, I lived in, neighborhoods where violence was rampant. And so in my younger years, I had, knew close friends that had got killed and things like that. Not really I was a kid on the wrong side of the tracks. I came from the right side, and I was like, yeah, I was a preacher kid. My father, my father is a Muslim minister, so let me dab on that side. It's more fun over there. And so I wasn't a stranger to violence, but coming from the other side of seeing that if you instill in your children these particular things, then this should be the outcome. And so when I had the 4 kids so young, and me and their father didn't work out, I was like, okay, I can't be a teenage parent. Their dad had some issues, and not have my degree and on welfare. Oh no, this is not. No, it's been instilled in me that this is the recipe for disaster. And so I got into the manufacturing field and worked my butt off. I moved from the manufacturing line to engineer within 5 years.
Wow.
I think I had 4 kids and had bought my house before I was 30 years old. Made the engineer before 28.
Wow.
And so in my mind, if I fixed all of the things I messed up on, then life would be perfect. Right? And then when my son got killed, it totally changed my perception. I think for years I was with my children and with I'm also the oldest of 5 kids, and then other people in my community. I always felt like if I led by example, or if I displayed this example, then everybody, like, our own ego, everybody I come in contact with, of course, will want to be like me. And then when Rodney was killed, and this wasn't a case of gang violence or a bad drug deal or in the wrong place at the wrong time. It was the perfect scenario, or the worst scenario, of what happens when you allow accessibility of guns to just everybody. This was right around the pandemic in 2020. The world, this July, so some places were starting to open back up, but we still were pretty much told to, don't be around a lot of people, shut in. We had just did a lot of work on the house and in the backyard because we had nothing else to do, beautifying. And so my son Rodney had invited some friends over. I was back at work. He hadn't returned back yet. But I was back at work, and he had invited some friends over to enjoy the pool. He's like, it's 98 or 100-something degrees out.
Come on over.
Come on over. I got some floaties. In fact, they had videos of them in the floaties, like we hanging out on the floaties or whatever. And it wasn't a big pool party. It was a small gathering. But him and one of his guests got into an argument, and he was shot in my backyard. And I had just came back home right before the gathering when people were just getting there. And usually, even though Rodney was 29, me and Rodney, that was my roomie. The rest of my kids, he didn't have kids. He didn't have a spouse. He wasn't married. He wasn't in a deep committed relationship. So, and we have a big house. So I'm like, you take that half, I'll take this half, and whatever. And so this particular day I come home, and my first instinct was like, I don't feel like being bothered, And I was like, you know what, I'm going to take a nap, because I work 12-hour days on most days as global management. So most of my clients were overseas. So I started out at 4 a.m. And just go until take a little nap, and I might get back up. And I had been doing that for 20-plus years, so my body was used to it. And I woke up to the gunshots. And even though I had not heard gunshots in a long time, I knew what they were. And I came outside, and I saw Rodney and the young man, which at that time I thought they were fighting. And so I broke them up, like, what the F is going on? And Rodney dropped to the ground, and the young man, fled.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, thank you.
My condolences.
But after Rodney was transported to the hospital, they wouldn't allow. I was the only person there, so they wouldn't allow me to leave the crime scene. And I'm giving you all this context just to. I ain't gonna try to spend too long with it, but I think it's important.
It is because
this was the point where I feel like God started that walk. And they wouldn't let me leave. They moved me from the backyard where they were processing, but they couldn't get me off the ground. Like, I'm sitting on the ground. I could not get off the ground. And I'm holding dirt. I look back and I don't know if I realized it at the time, but I'm holding dirt, because when something like that happens, you don't even know what's going on. You're just in a trance. And I remember I kept looking at the dirt, and I kept looking at my home, my beautiful home, my privacy fenced-in backyard home nestled in suburbia. And I'm looking at dirt, because dirt represents prosperity. It represents land. It represents what you've accomplished, on your land. And I was like, what was it all for? Like, how did I go from living in the hood, selling drugs, even at a time in my life, all these things that could have resulted in death, that didn't, and we here, and my kids, my youngest at the time was 27. So all the kids, all my biological children were all on the other side of 25. So for Black mother life, our biggest fear, this was right after George Floyd, was of them being killed by the police. I was never in my mind would I have thought that he would have been killed in this type of situation.
In your backyard at a pool party.
And I think that all of those things that scenario needed to happen for me, because it allowed me to be able to look at this as not an other.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That it became important to me to be able to get other people to understand that this is not, gun violence is not a black issue.
Right.
It's not a poor issue. It's not a, everybody's listening to hip hop issue.
Right.
We are at a time where we all live off of instant gratification. We have poor impulse control.
Right.
Even the best of us sometimes be like, damn, I wish I hadn't did that. I wish I hadn't said that.
Right.
And when you couple that with an access to a weapon that there's no time, individuals who are, and I'm not anti-gun. I'm just anti-easy access to weapons. And that people need to be responsible. Right. The likelihood in this world of people being responsible is not going to happen though right now,
Yeah.
So
what was before this had occurred, did you even think about like gun laws and
I did. I was always anti-gun in my house. In fact, me and my husband, we got married. I have 5 bonus babies as well.
Okay.
Well, they're not babies. The youngest is 18, the oldest is 31.
Oh yeah.
They're not babies either, but
bonus adults.
Bonus adults.
Short kids, sons.
But in coming from being a single parent while I was raising my kids, I was really anti-gun because in the house, not because of so much that I didn't, think that people should use it, but I was more worried about the kids getting into an argument and them using it on each other. So when we got married, I was like, I don't want no guns in my house. And he has a lot of guns. And he was like, well, what am I supposed to do with them? I don't sell them. I don't know. Give them, return them, whatever. I don't know what y'all do. But they're not coming in this house. And so I did think of it in that aspect, but it wasn't something that now it's everyday thought about it.
And so at that point, is that when like forgiveness, anger, sadness, these feelings, how did you balance that in seeing the suspect? Yeah. Right?
And I didn't know him before then.
Running away.
Yeah.
And so now you know who done it.
Yeah.
And then this person has, escaped, evaded at the moment.
Yeah.
Like,
I was mad.
How did you deal with those emotions? And what was your what did you want to do? What did you think was possible?
Well, you know what? Being a mother of other children, I think if he was my only child, maybe the situation would have been different.
Right.
But there was too much to lose. And so I purposely did approach it somewhat peacefully because I was like, look, I got a son, my other son, my daughter, they got hands. They and so and they were very angry. But also in that flash of a moment, before he left the backyard, I had a moment to make eye contact with him. And I did not see. A lot of times when these kind of things happen, you don't get a chance to see that person.
Right.
It's the visualization is of this horrified, cold-blooded, ice-cold, blankless person that's harmed your family. And in this instant, I was able to see. In fact, I looked at him and I saw my son. I saw, he looked like so many, braids and young and nicely dressed and trying to be cute. I mean, they had girls there, so they were trying to be cute. And for that instant, I saw my son, but it wasn't. It still took a while. Yeah. When I was going through the court proceedings, you just feel like you're not you have there's no control of it.
Right.
I didn't have no control over my son not being here. Right. Now I have no control over the consequences. Right. they give you the feeling like you have involvement, but you really don't. I mean,
Right.
it's just a courtesy if they want to have a courtesy.
Right.
But it's the state versus whoever did you
Right.
harm,
Right.
not you
District
versus.
attorney.
Yeah. And so, as I felt like my emotions were being strung along or moved based off of whatever they wanted to do,
Right.
whether they wanted to go with the harshest sentence or if they wanted to, be able to do some type of plea agreement.
Right.
My emotions were moved with that. And this was right around the time of Vicky Hambrick, the officer being sentenced in
Right.
there.
With Daniel Hambrick. Yep.
In fact, I was with her the day the police officer was sentenced was the same day that we had our last meeting with the prosecutors before we were getting ready to go to sentencing.
Wow.
So I sat with her the day before, and so we were both in the kind of same
Right.
realm, and we were exchanging that anger, the
Yeah.
crying, the tears.
Right.
We're both a member of Mothers Over Murder, which is an action group
Right.
here in Tennessee. And so I saw what she was going through that had been, televised,
Right.
and just that anger. I was like, the pain
Yeah.
is what stood out the most to me was the pain. I was like, I don't want to be in that space.
Yeah.
And then I also thought about the fact that what if it was my son that was on the other side of the gun?
Right.
What would I want to happen? We talked about restorative justice.
That's the slippery slope.
Yeah.
I think. I think just with human beings naturally.
Yeah.
And I think being in this country, I think we have some type of, fascination with harm and punishment in general. So it's like, somebody do something bad to me, I want them to suffer as well. Like I think that's just we indoctrinated.
It's indoctrinated in us.
Yeah.
So restorative justice, if it can be accomplished,
Right.
of course, the person that has done you harm has to be redeemable. They have to have some type of remorse,
Right.
and the victim has to want it.
Right.
But I requested a restorative type of sentencing with his
Wow.
case, and the reason why, at that point, it wasn't because I was at forgiveness,
Right.
but it was bigger than my son, and it was bigger than the person that had killed him. I thought about who that prisoner would be inside,
Right.
and he still is going to have access to other people who are getting out.
Right.
He's still going to have access to his own family.
Right.
And what do we want that to look like? And
Wow.
I wanted that person to be a healed, healthy person, so that when he interacted with other people, he had some type of an impact in preventing them from committing harm.
What was others around you saying when you was like, I want this restorative justice approach? What was, because I'm pretty sure there was a lot of people in your ear. I'm pretty sure other people that
People
loved
still
your
think I'm
son
crazy.
wanted other things to happen to the offender, right?
Yeah. My own family, a lot of them took a long time. It was hard for them to pill to swallow. I think it was an easier pill eventually,
Right.
because I'm mom.
Yeah.
Nobody lost more
Than you.
than I did.
Yep.
And so I think that was easier for them to eventually come to terms with.
Yeah.
But initially, a lot of people thought I was crazy. In fact, I still don't find a lot of mothers or in this space that people, it might get presented to them, but for me, it just came on.
Right.
It was like God gave me the vision while I was sitting in the prosecutor's office.
Right.
And outside of that, then it was just God's work.
What was that sentencing?
So his is 6 years. He never did anything before.
Okay.
this 6 years, and that's including his probation time. While he's incarcerated, he will work with Nashville Peacemakers, and then once he's released, he'll work with the Mothers Over Murder until we graduate him, to be able to do work with the mentoring group through Nashville Peacemakers of Straight Talk.
Wow. Wow. That's as I talk about our criminal legal system with so many different people, and that restorative justice comes up a lot. You know, I have a 2-year-old son. He'll be 3 in May. I don't know. You know, like it's hard to say what you would and wouldn't do until it happens. Even though I know consciously, I know like prison has not worked, right?
Yeah,
that approach,
it's not
preventing other violence from happening, right? So even with me knowing that, and then think, okay, what are alternatives? What are things that could possibly, make those who get engaged healthier, better community members? But how does that make victims whole? You know, what like, and so I know restorative justice is something that we need to continue to try. We need to advocate for, because we just need to try something different, because we don't know if something works or not unless we try. Yeah. But then it's like the parent, the human being, just like, I don't know if I could.
Well,
so me, I agree with one, but then like the human in me in turn, like I sit like, it's easy for me to say now, but like when it actually happens to you, would I make that decision?
Oh, I think that you have. God.
It gotta be a higher power.
It's a higher power. I don't think that's something that you can just come to by yourself. I mean, I will say, I did 20 plus years in quality manufacturing. So my whole life was based off doing root cause analysis and problem solving. So for me, my brain is always trained to go straight to root and straight to prevention versus reaction, because that don't fix future problems.
Right.
And, I have always been a person that, wanted more for my community and the people that are around me. And in this aspect, I mean, I'm able to use my voice, like you said, that's uniquely. And I think that it's different. Yeah. And it allows people to see the other side of it and maybe want to do something different when it comes to fighting this problem.
Now, as you're going through this process, what are you learning about the criminal legal system? Some people say criminal justice, some people say criminal punishment system. Whatever floats your boat. But what are you learning about this system?
Yeah, I mean, as an African American, we always have looked at it as being not for us, right? But this really gave me a bird's eye view of this ain't for us. And interestingly enough, that a lot of people who, even in our community, that once they get harmed, they now, before what threw me off was like, I would see people inside of the same circle that on one hand will be saying, long live whoever got killed, and in the next hand talking about free the person that killed it. And I'm like, how can you do both? But we're so impacted on both sides.
Yeah.
And but it's interesting that that's only usually the young people.
Yeah.
Older folks, we now all of a sudden we are those same individuals who we were talking about before. Like oh, they shouldn't be locking our people up for this long. Now we'd be like, lock them up, kill them, hang them tomorrow. And so somebody was in the courtroom when I had, addressed the court and asked for this type of sentencing to be included with his thing. And he didn't have to take it. It wasn't a requirement. Like I said, I requested it, and he accepted. But that kind of got me into, this work of criminal justice reform, that there's individuals in here, and most of the individuals that I've come in contact with that are in these justice streets that have done time, you know, for murders, things as bad as murders.
Right.
They're not that same individual.
Yeah.
You know, it has a way of when you, I mean, I can't speak because I haven't taken a life, but I can imagine that when you are remorseful about taking something so precious,
Right.
that you want to do anything and everything you can to put it back.
Yeah. What does that word justice mean to you?
Well, I would say this, in my opinion, justice, accountability.
Okay.
And for somebody to take, you can't punish accountability.
Yeah.
Think about your child.
Yeah.
Not right now because he's 2.
Right.
But, you know, when he's a little bit more into the decision making of being willful disobedient.
Right.
He gets in trouble at school and, you know, you explain to him, you know, why he's in trouble, or you take stuff whatever away from him, and, you know, and this is why. And he's like, oh, okay, I ain't got no choice but to do this punishment.
Right.
But I don't agree.
Right.
I ain't do nothing.
There's no accountability.
There was no accountability. So what did you achieve by it? Because now he's going to repeat said behavior. He's just going to get better at repeating the behavior. Now I just got to make sure I don't get caught, because I don't feel like what I did was actually a bad thing.
Right.
So if you don't have accountability, then you can't have justice. So in knowing that, because people don't tend to think that anybody's going to take account or responsibility,
Right.
in our minds, you need to go do the most harshest thing possible.
Right.
Because I can't make you be accountable.
Right.
Accountability has to be given with your body.
Right.
But yeah,
That's deep.
yeah, they think that
Yeah.
I can't. There's nothing I can do to make you take account.
Right.
In the inside, in their mind, because they don't know you on the inside, so
Right.
they want your
25
life.
years. There you
Yeah,
go.
I want is the harshest thing that I could possibly
Right.
give you for what you've taken from me.
Right.
But for me, I believe that if you, as a victim, I feel empowered in being able to allow the person that harmed me to see how he harmed me,
Right.
why, you know, what he did, how it impacted everybody. And so that he not only wants to make a change in his life, but hopefully my prayer is that he wants to make a change in others.
Right. How does that go when you're organizing, right? When you're talking
Yeah.
to these other mothers or other community members that may have been harmed,
Yeah.
and you talk to them about redemption and restorative justice, is that something they generally kind of take to initially, or it's like, no, or is it kind of just new to people? Like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about? It's definitely, I would say I'm very, I'm blessed to have about 25 sister moms. I was blessed to meet, you know, Clemmy Greenlee, and to be able to meet all these different women that are in different spaces, that have lost their children, different forms of violence, you know, whether they might have had some contributing in it or not, whether, you know, they was totally, you know, just random acts or whatever it was. So it made me very, those souls, those people, they mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
They're very precious to me. Life has become very precious to me, and what people that have been traumatized have become precious to me. So I'm very protective over that. I say often that the space that I've come to, this works for me.
Right.
But I'm not here to tell anybody else
Right.
what they should do as a victim.
Yeah.
They have to come to that space in their own healing.
Right.
I can say this, look at it this way. When you want the worst thing to happen to somebody, you have to stay in that space of anger until said thing is completed.
Right.
And then if it's so harsh, such as with the death penalty,
Right.
this person is executed. Now I have to stay in this anger space because I need to feel justified in
Right.
wanting this person dead.
Right.
See, a lot of people think that once that person is killed, then they're going to be in a place of peace.
Right.
But you wanted to kill somebody. You wanted
Right.
them dead. And then when a lot of times when you find out all these different contributing factors,
Underlining contributing
yeah,
factors.
you know, whether it's where they grew up with or, you know, their own
Social,
abuse.
economic.
Yeah, all
background,
those
their
things.
Own trauma. Yep.
Exactly. And then you start to see the human side of this person. Then you be like, wait a
Right.
minute, what have I done?
Right. You brought up the death penalty again, like this thing that we're indoctrinated, conditioning around. I think as Americans in this country, is that punishment and harm, and the death penalty is something that's still legal here in Tennessee.
Yes.
But you know, you work for an organization, the Tennesseans for Alternatives to the Death Penalty. Want to abolish that death penalty here in Tennessee. Why? Why is that so important? Why? And I'm playing devil's advocate, right? Why should we abolish the death penalty, especially if it's for those who have taken life? That's what many people will ask.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's still many advocates or supporters of the death penalty that are in our country. You know, politicians, community members, all the above. That's why we still have it in our state, in others, right? Why should we abolish it? Why is that?
Well, I always say this: how can you, as a state or as a community, say that murder is bad and then have state mandated murder? How can you preach the value of life and then take life?
Right.
I'm a religious person.
Okay.
And what I find very ironic that Tennessee, being one of the biggest, you know, proponents of the death penalty, Shelby County, where 50% of our death row cases come out of.
Wow.
50% of the death row cases are African Americans, even though we only make 17% up for the state. And those half of those are all came out of Shelby County.
All right. Which that's Memphis.
Yeah.
I wonder if Memphis our blackest city?
One of them, and it's one of the 25 counties where most lynchings occurred. So if you were to look at a map of where those areas are that most of those lynchings occur, and overlay that where all the execution, those states still having the death penalty, it's almost the exact. I mean, it's identical.
Wow.
And so you have this racial disparity. Just to give you a little historical context, lynching, the death penalty in America is birthed out of lynching.
Right.
Even when we were executing people in colonial times, African Americans, who made up a very minimal portion of society, were still the majority of individuals who were executed. Right. Okay? So then, now when you had state executions then, the reason why they stopped executing people back then was because black people were property. So if the state executed your property, they got to pay you for that.
Right.
So they got rid of the death penalty because they didn't want to pay slave owners for for executing individuals, which could have been for things that were violating social norms.
Right.
And so then lynching took the place of the death penalty.
Right.
And then there was so much lynching going on, especially after slavery was over, that President Roosevelt used bringing back the death penalty as a way to pacify people from lynching.
Like, well, we're not gonna. So essentially, as we all know, it's just prison in itself is just the alternative in new tactic reforming of slavery.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so, in knowing how much racist roots that have to do with that, the majority of black people who are in prison, and now we know that most people that kill people kill people that are acquaintances, right?
Right.
You know, me and you, we both we don't use the black on black term because we know it could be black on black or white on white or Asian on Asian. Right. That black on black is just another way to say to the black community, y'all got a problem.
Right, exactly.
But 75% of the people that are on death row that are African American are on there for killing white people.
I didn't know that. Wow.
So again, you are reinforcing this notion that life is more valuable.
Right.
That killing this person is so heinous that you deserve death.
Yeah. And and I think like that has been conditioned into our whole society as systems and individuals, right? We know whether it's been kitchen table conversations with your peers, with your family, but like we all had those conversations as black people specifically. Like, we can do this to each other, and not even worry about the repercussions.
Yeah.
But we won't even think about committing those same heinous acts or harm to our white counterparts, our oppressors.
Yeah.
Essentially, right? Of our whole group, right? Since our arrival here. And I think that's just the indoctrination of white supremacy within us, anti-blackness within us, black hate within us. That we gotta deal with, we gotta figure out. But to even go to another layer, I know you brought up like music a little bit earlier, how music, hip hop is not the cause of why people are doing this or doing that. These things existed before quote unquote hip hop came into the picture. But when you talk about a music genre that promotes and allows companies push it, hey, whoever can talk about killing a black person or each other the best in a sense.
Now I'm not saying it's not a contributor.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that don't look at it just those being the cause.
Exactly. Exactly. And so, and I tell people all the time, like and I'm from the South. I love trap, gangster music, but like let's call a spade. Like current hip hop music at this particular moment that is commercialized to display is anti-black music. Yeah. Right. It doesn't like this.
There's no balance because in my era. I'm the era of the Run DMCs and Queen Latifah's and Tribe Called Quest and all that.
Fight the power, all that. The
Public Enemy. We had some balance. Ain't no balance now. We just all kill. Well, do some drugs, kill.
Well, this is a thing though, because of streaming. Like I think you can find all of the music that you want to. You can curate your own listening.
This is true. It's
but
not
I think
publicized.
What's pushed and what's commercialized the most is the harmful, the violence, the things that perpetuate harm. That is what's sold and marketed the most. Yeah. And that has to, and you have to, I think you have to question what social responsibility do those businesses, those labels and stuff have, because it's okay, but we know, we've seen it play out. If we talk about other groups of community in the same way, it don't last too long. It doesn't go too far. We talk about killing white folks, or we talk about doing harm to the gay community or to Jews. It's a different type of consequences of backlash, which goes into that value thing. Our lives are not, and our bodies are not valued the same as others. Yeah. And that's just it is. That's just what it is.
And you also have the situation where, poor people are most likely the ones that are, getting these life. Your race, where you live at, being in particular in Tennessee and Shelby County, and how much money you got is dictating whether you live or die by the hands of the state. Right. And that's not acceptable. At all.
How do we change that? How do we? What is that? What is that call to action? And maybe there's on different levels that people can do something about that. Or is this what it is?
No, ain't nothing what it is. Anything you want to do to make a difference, if you have the want and desire to do it, then a change can eventually come. Right. we're not too far from Atlanta.
Right.
Nashville, the population of Nashville, the racial makeup of Nashville, the quantity of people of Nashville, we're not that far off from Atlanta. So I think about my sister Stacey Abrams and just the things that she did with getting the boots on the ground.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that you have to use your voice.
Right.
In particular, there's laws that can be changed.
Yep.
I work for Tennesseans for Alternatives to the Death Penalty.
Right.
So we deal with legislation. We deal with lobbying. We're talking to legislators.
Right.
We're having those conversations. But on anything that you are passionate about, I think that if we can come together and educating is a lot of part of it. And empower them. Because before I started doing this work, I mean, even though I knew I wanted to get into criminal justice reform, I picked alternatives to death penalty because that's the harshest sentence that you could possibly even imagine. That's the worst thing that can happen to a person, is to be executed. But even before then, I didn't realize that the amount of people that are innocent. For every 8 people that we execute, one person is exonerated. Since the 1970s, we have exonerated over 190 people. And so, and those top 3 contributing factors when it comes to exoneration is number 1, the prosecutor or police misconduct. Right. Quite often, if you look at it, in Tennessee included, in the areas where the death penalty is being carried out, these are DAs that are white, usually with all white juries. They do. In some cases, they've even found that the prosecutors purposely made sure there's no black people on the jury. That's misconduct.
Yeah.
Falsifying testimony, or just in any case, just like with any other type of no matter what the sentence is, people make mistaken identities.
Right.
So when you have all those contributing factors, intellectual disabilities, we've just now in Tennessee in 2021 got a law on the books that you can't execute a person that's intellectually disabled. And we were just in 2022 able to get Purvis Payne not off of death row. He's still physically on death row, but he's no longer. He's had his sentence commuted. Right. So he's no longer being executed. Now we're just waiting for him to physically be removed. But how do you think it makes a juror feel after they voted to execute somebody and they find out all this information wasn't presented to them? How does that sit with them? Or even, like I said, again, even with victims, when we're going through, as you know, with the death penalty, it costs extensively more, at least $2 million more than it costs for a regular case.
Wow.
Because most people who are facing the death penalty can't afford their own attorney.
Exactly.
So the state's paying for it. You're providing them, at least most likely it's more than one attorney. They usually have a team, or at least 2. And then you have all these expert testimonies, so the state knows that their system is, I hate to use the word broken, but we're going to use broken. But broken to me implies that once upon a time it was okay. It was never okay. But we're going to use broken in this case. So they know that there's so many problems with the system. They know these issues. And so, they get expert testimony. We're spending more money. We're making sure they have halfway decent counsel because we don't want to come back to bite us. But even then, you have years and years and years of legislation. Did you know that it takes for a person of color to find out is innocent is an average of 25 years to determine their innocence?
Wow.
So when people come back and they say, well, we wouldn't have to spend all this money if you just execute them the next day. You can't find out somebody's innocent when they're dead.
Right, exactly. And because they're not fighting for their innocence no more. And then that's 25 years if they want to fight and if they not being just beat down by, the penal system and whatever else that happens when you're engaged in there, right? Wow.
So, you know, when I got behind the curtain and seen all of those things that, you know, I was like, man, you know, I want to make sure that I'm educating my brothers and sisters because it doesn't deter crime.
Yeah.
And that was my whole reason of getting into criminal justice reform is because it does not deter crime.
Right.
We have got to focus our resources on actual prevention.
What does that prevention look like? How do we get ahead of that and providing resources that prevent people from having to go to court, get sentenced, and go to prison, and then maybe, you know, come back home and then still have barriers because they have that felony.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's go back to when we talk about prevention. Let's look at it before we even get to the point of committing a crime.
Right.
Okay. So, because we still in this condition, you know, one of my other issues around in this when I'm hearing legislators and lawmakers when they are passing laws related to reducing crime, it's always sentence related.
Right.
It's always sentence related. It's never, what can I do inside of, what are you doing with the foster care system?
Right.
What are you doing for DCS to make sure these babies ain't sleeping in hallways? They're not molested.
Right.
Where's the trauma-informed care? Why don't we have things like raising emotional intelligence at a kindergarten level?
Right.
You know, these kind of things that could be preventing crime.
Right.
We're not putting resources.
Right.
Tennessee.
Housing.
How the heck do you
Food
make
insecurities,
it?
all
You know,
of that.
there's no security here. You made it a felony for a person to be asleep on the street, which a felony to me should be reserved for a person that is committing a crime that could promote harm.
Right.
What harm do you promote while you sleep?
You might trip me up as I'm walking. I might trip over you and fall.
But you made it a felony to be sleep on the street, but you don't have to provide affordable housing or even transportation for people to get to. We have the worst public transportation.
Right. Yeah.
You know, so you set up all these situations of what you call it is stacked against people.
Right.
And we're not pouring money in it. Trauma-informed care. You know, even when, like for instance, victims. If you look at the victims' compensation, if I lost my child to violence, I have the right to apply for funding, right?
Okay.
To maybe help with burial and some counseling costs. But counseling costs is reserved to immediate family members. Okay, what does immediate family members look like in a traditional black household? Everybody ain't just living with mommy and daddy and the kids.
Right.
Some of us are living with grandparents and cousins and aunts and uncles.
Right.
All those people are impacted.
Right.
When somebody harm people.
Right.
And so when you are in a situation where, like you said, when you become desensitized or when murder is surrounding
It's the norm. It's
the
like,
norm,
okay.
it's also puts your young people in a situation where, you know, that becomes the resource of what to do when you're angry.
Right.
You know, and I'm really I'm just starting my research on community-based violence programs like they have in New Jersey, Newark, I think it's one of them, and I'm really you know, I'm starting to I'm seeing that collective coming together with the village here and you know, different organizations, and that's also my goal is that, you know, I'm trying to make as many connections as possible out here so that collectively, you know, we can make a difference. You know, we're already into the new year, and I think, 4 people have already been killed in the Nashville area.
I think it was just somebody last night by police that I seen that the community oversight board had
Oh, wow.
posted about. Yeah. I think that was the first police fatal shooting of the year. I think it was like yesterday. So what's today? The 6th? So we 5 days, 6 days in. You know. Yeah.
We have to do something on the prevention side. Yeah. Because on the other side, on the sentencing side, you have a person that most individuals, unfortunately, you don't think about consequences before you kill somebody.
Right.
You don't think about, okay, if I pull this trigger, I can get the death penalty. Consequences is not what goes to the person's head. And the person that we could potentially be executing is normally not the person that committed the crime. I'm not saying that as far as they're innocent. I'm saying is that, are you the same person you were 5 years ago?
No.
10 years ago? As you mature and evolve and get older, we become, totally different individuals. There's choices and decisions that I made 20, 25 years ago that I was like, who the hell? Why? What? That I would never even imagine, So we had, we're executing individuals 25 years, 30 years down the line. It's not the same person. This 70-year-old man is not the same person that committed the crime when he was 30.
I want to get into this empowering kind of thing, like empowering of like surviving families of murder, right? And I know you're working with the Mothers Over Murder. What does that empowering look like, right? Of families who are, survivors of victims of murder. When you go and sit, on a mother or father's couch in their home, and you know because you've been through it. What does that look like? What are those conversations, and what is empowering? What does that make up at the end of the day, or is that various things of how do you empower somebody, or I'll give people, like, hey, let them know you still have power.
Yeah.
What does that look like? What are those conversations?
Yeah. Well, definitely letting them know that how they feel in whatever space of grief that they are in is okay.
Yeah.
I always tell people, I'm like, do not compare my healing to your healing. Because it ain't going to look the same. What you started with might not even been the same. That relationship you had with that loved one may be totally different. Whether it's a close relationship or maybe y'all were dysfunctional, and then you got to deal with the guilt on that. But the main thing is that for me, talking about it, using your voice is one of the best ways with the healing. Empowering, finding your purpose through your pain, channeling that I wouldn't say so much the anger. Of course we have anger. I'm still mad. Shit. Excuse my French. But challenging the fact that this was not acceptable. I was like, there's a point when you're going through losing your child through the hands of somebody else. The normal stages of grief do not apply. Okay, because one of those steps is acceptance, right? How do you accept what's unacceptable?
You don't. skip that one. Mark that out.
So, and that's one of the things I used to always say. I'm like, how do I accept what's unacceptable? I can't accept what's unacceptable. And since I can't accept what's unacceptable, what am I going to do to change it? And I think that is one of the things that I enjoy, with my grief support group. We are in each other's homes and on the phone with each other all the time, and picking each other back up from it. But just now, like I said, finding that purpose, whether it's out here fighting in these streets, bringing awareness to the situation, going to, your city council meetings or whatever, using your voice is the best way, especially in feeling empowered, to me.
How can those of us in community that may not have been a victim of someone or experienced anybody close to us has been killed or harmed, or this might gun violence, or just by somebody, just they was innocent, somebody said, I'm going to take your life. How do we support and be allies to those surviving victims of murder, and do it in a way of integrity, and doing it in a way that that I'm not, trying to get all up in your business or,
or trying to fix them.
Or trying to fix it. What are the best approaches?
Humans always want to fix people. They do. I mean, you see somebody that's going through something, your automatic impulses are like, let me help them up. Let me get them up. Let me say something that's going to be so, profound that's going to get them to bullshit.
Right.
Okay? It does not work like that. But in integrity, it's just, walking beside, putting that, saying, hey, I'm willing, I'm empathetic. Maybe I'm haven't been through this situation.
Yeah.
The one thing that used to always get on my nerves, people always say, oh my God, that's unimaginable. You think, and it's unimaginable to me too.
Yeah.
I still don't imagine it. I mean, who does? I don't even think God allows us to. But, to willfully put yourself in position to say, hey, this is important. What do you need from me? Whether we're saying, hey, I need somebody to be in the courtroom.
Right.
Nobody was hardly in the courtroom with me when I was dealing with this situation. Nobody in the community was saying, hey, nobody. I mean, my neighbors, they came over and baked bread, but nobody, after that, after the person is dead and gone, then, and for individuals who are going through, a court case, this could be lasting up to 3, 4, 5 years, depending on if they even know, who killed the person.
I gotta ask you about this very cultural trend that we have, and that's no snitching, no telling, no title telling. That has been echoed for many years. A lot of it through music, a lot of it just through people saying, hey, if something happened in the streets, keep it in the streets, don't tell. What is the phrase? Snitches get stitches. Type of things. What is your
thought process on no snitching?
Yeah, what is your thoughts on that?
Okay, my thought, this is my hood mentality.
Right, yeah. And
I'm going to take it to the hood. When I'm thinking about no snitching, that meant me and you went into the bank together. We robbed this joint together.
Right.
I got caught.
Right.
No snitches is I'm not telling that you was with me.
Right.
That does not apply to the person I just seen the person next door get killed.
Right.
That's not where no snitching. No snitching applies only to me and you doing dirt together.
Okay.
Both our hands in the candy dish.
Right.
One of us got caught. I'm not telling you. That's when you do not snitching. No snitching does not apply when you see your loved one or your family member, or your community member, or even an innocent body. When you see another human being harmed, no snitching does not apply.
Right. Okay.
Because in that case, then you're no different than the person that took somebody's life.
I wonder how many murders would be solved if people took that approach.
Yeah.
Because I think most people know or have seen, and because they're in that life of streetness, they just say, it ain't got nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
I ain't, I didn't do it, but I seen it, but I'm not getting involved because I ain't no snitch.
Yeah.
And
then they turn around and be smiling in the person's face that been harmed.
Yeah.
Knowing they know who did whatever they did.
Yeah, it's one of those things that that I don't know how we break that, but I know everybody, mama, daddy, especially mama. Mama told you to tell it. Hey, what happened?
Yeah.
Set the record straight.
Yeah. Who did it?
Who did it?
Who did it?
And so I just had to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and it just always threw me off, because I'm like, why? I don't understand this whole no snitching mentality of where this is birthed from.
Yeah.
When it comes to the individual, I'm like, how does this apply to regular, everyday individuals?
Well, I think that's like, I guess, the confusion a lot of times, because say say I'm in the streets. Say
Yeah.
I'm a street person, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just, chilling. But
Yeah.
then I see, somebody else I know that's in the streets come by and kill another person that's also in the streets. Mm-hmm. I would.
Was you killing people yesterday?
I'm a witness.
Okay.
I'm a witness to that, right? I'm killing people yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, for real though.
I haven't caught no bodies yet. I'm just a witness. But I'm in the streets. I'm just a witness, and I see another street person kill another street person, and I'm just a street person that's in the gang, that's in the streets, but I just witnessed it. The police come question me, and if I say such and such did it, regardless,
Yeah.
I'm gonna be labeled a stitch.
Yeah.
Because, I was a witness. I was minding my business.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't look at me as a civilian.
I mean, and we're more concerned about what we're gonna be thought of,
Yeah.
and then that person taking account for what they did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah. Yeah, but
That's a whole other arena.
Yeah,
Like
but no.
yeah.
But like it's just one of those. It's just one of those things that I think like it's.
I mean, we went through that with my son's case.
People didn't want to talk. Yeah.
No.
No snitching.
Or even if it was that person ain't here no more, I can't be allegiant to them because they gone. I'm gonna be allegiant to the person that's still
alive.
Yeah.
Wow. When they at your house chilling, kicking. That's deep.
Yeah, that's what I said. We got a whole lot of unpacking to do.
Yeah.
When we're talking about, we got a lot of unpacking to do in our communities that really, I mean.
Right.
Until we get back to this village mentality of actually caring about each other's, what goes on in the next person's house and what goes on.
Yeah.
And that includes snitching. If the person, it has to get to a point where we are all a family. And these are the things that we do not accept in this circle. Right. And the people that are violating the circle,
right,
they, experience XYZ consequences.
What was your experience with the police in that situation, and what are your thoughts about police today?
Fortunately, in my situation, I think that the police that were involved, they were able to see themselves in me.
Okay.
They were able to come to this house and they'd be like, dang, that could have happened in my house.
Right.
So there was a lot of compassion, a follow-up, and, in fact, I still talk to the detectives that were involved to this day. They'll call and just check on me.
Yeah.
Or if they have another case where there's a mother that's impacted, then they'll give her my information, so that we can help.
Yeah.
But I don't even want to talk about the police today. We're not going to get into that list.
Part 2 coming back. We're going to talk about police on the next one. We can't give it all to y'all on the first one. Coming back on the police. But the reason I brought that up is because I think you talked about, you illuminated on a little bit of like how just our historical context with the criminal legal system. Yeah. And how we just don't trust it. Yeah. And the police is involved in that. Yeah. Right. And we don't trust the police. And therefore, I think that's where you get that, I'm not talking to police because I'm just not want to deal with that. Yeah. And so I think
a lot of it does have to do with trust.
A lot of it has to do with trust.
Yeah.
And just what we've seen directly or indirectly has created this whole big cycle that, it probably does more harm than good. Yeah. At this particular point.
Because we're just adding to the destruction.
Yeah.
But it takes responsibility on both sides. It takes responsibility on the police side to be able to instill that trust. To get your community to a point where you're not feeling like, you're just the overseers to keep everybody in the cage.
Right.
When you get to a point where you're actually feeling like the part about protecting and serving,
Yeah.
that is actually happening. And it also takes for the community to, just like all black men don't want to be looked at as being the person that's going to steal your purse while they is in the elevator.
Right.
It's not fair to give that same generalization to every single officer you come in
Right.
contact with either.
Yeah. And I think I know some community, organizers and advocacies won't even deal with the police.
Yeah.
Which I think, until they
I don't
gone,
think, how can you?
Yeah, not. But that's just. But until they gone and not doing what they're doing, I feel like it only makes sense to have some type of communal relationship with them and then communicating how you want your community to be policed. Because again, they tax dollars. Yeah. And so if I'm paying you, I need to talk to you about kind of like what you're doing and not doing. Yeah. And hold some type of accountability to that and with that. Yeah. I want to get before we get out of here, I want to get more to your work and like what is that looking like today? How can people get involved? Okay. And support their work. And if somebody needs your services or need to talk to you, just paint that picture for us.
Okay. So as a community outreach coordinator, I'm down out here in these streets, educating individuals on what the death penalty is, how it impacts us, and how it is not preventing crime, and how we need to be doing something different. We can do tabling. We do tabling at different at churches, schools. Contact us to get on that email list. Right. Fortunately, right now, this year of 2022, nobody was executed, as you may have recalled back in April. In the 11th hour, Governor Lee stopped the execution when they found out that there was issues with the protocol, the drug protocol. And so in that case, he put all of the executions on hold for the remaining of 2022, and he hasn't given an answer, hasn't resumed them yet. They did just finish the investigation that he requested to happen, and that report just came out, and there were some very troubling findings in it. We found that the protocol was not being followed. We're finding that, and the main issue that we have is that the secrecy. Right. So a lot of people don't know about the secrecy legislation in relation to the death penalty. Yeah.
It's a secret to me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and they won't let you know who the drug manufacturers are. They won't let you know who the pharmacy is. And we're not. And of course, they won't let you know anybody who's involved in carrying out the execution. And what happens when you have secrecy is that when you don't have transparency, especially when it comes to our communities, what happens when you don't have transparency and when you don't have, you can't see what's going on. Yeah. When they hide in their hand, we're the ones that are the main people that are being impacted by it. And so those things are concerning. So definitely there needs to be some changes there as far as that secrecy legislation. At least let us know who the pharmacy is and who are the individuals, that are making the drugs. I don't have to know who the correction officer was, but we at least need to know, what type of training they have. Do they even know what their process is and what their procedure is? As a juror or as a corrections officer, and you're being here carrying out this most harshest sentence, like I said, again, finding out that how it's being carried out is not being done in a way that you said you were going to do it, which opens up even more legislation. Yeah, but not legislation, but more
pharmacies and the medical, they don't want to be identified because then that means, regardless of what they've done or said, they're in support.
Oh yeah, well that's the thing. So in Tennessee, because the pharmacy is not going to give you the medication, what they do is they give it to this place called a compounding drug manufacturer. Okay. A compounding drug manufacturer does not have to abide by the same rules that a regular pharmacy does. Okay. It could be even as low level as black market. Wow. And so what happens is that these drugs that are being obtained, they may have endotoxins in it, and they might not have the best potency. Okay. Okay, so you're like, well, what difference does it make? It's a person that's being executed. Who cares what tortures methods go to? Okay, but we still have constitutional rights against cruel and unusual punishment.
Right.
So I want you to visualize that. Let's think for a serial killer, for instance. You remember those movies where this person is killing you, but they paralyze you so you can see what's going on, you can
Right.
feel what's going on,
Right.
but you can't
Can't do
make no
nothing.
movement
Right.
or yell out to stop it.
Right.
That's what the lethal injection is. People, they use the go-to method in Tennessee is lethal injection because people think of it as something that's, like a medical.
Right.
The correction officer ain't medical trained.
Right.
The drugs, if they ain't the potency, what happens is the first drug that they give you is supposed to put you to sleep. What if it doesn't put you all the way to sleep? The next drug is supposed to paralyze you. Paralyzing you doesn't keep you from feeling.
Right.
It keeps you from being able to let anybody else know you're in pain.
Right.
And then the third level is the drug that stops your heart. So in some cases, they found that, when they've done the autopsy, they're able to say these drugs failed.
Right.
And this person was basically
alive
and tortured to death.
Wow.
And so even if the person that harmed me executed, and the person that harmed you is still on death row, and the person that harmed me gets executed, and they find out all these issues is related to it, right? Your person is up for execution, but now they found all these issues with mine.
Right.
So now they're investigating it.
Right.
That's adding on even more time that you're dealing with as a family member who's
Right.
not only lost to somebody to violence. Now you're dealing with what's going to happen in the course. Is this person, I've already,
Right.
committed myself to this person's going to be executed, but in the 11th hour, like in Oscar Smith's case, it had to be called. That family was there
Right.
at,
Yeah.
the correctional facility awaiting
Right.
his execution. But because we're not even doing what we're saying we're going to do, and we're poorly equipping our corrections officers, not giving them proper training, not even giving them a proper process, that's messed up.
Yeah. Yeah. We got to find just something different in general than prison, how they currently are, what they currently look like, and then of course like the death penalty, and finding alternatives that makes everybody whole in a way, and different options. How can people reach out to you?
You can go to Tennessee Death Penalty .org, and you can sign up to get on our email list.
Okay.
That way you can be able to find out. We send out a newsletter once a month, or at least keep you abreast of actions that are being taken in and around the death penalty, whether it's in our own community or outside of our state.
Okay.
Some other states are executing people left and right.
Okay.
Missouri just executed a woman, the first transgender, when we just came into the new year. It was the day before yesterday.
Wow.
So, like I said, if you want us if you want to do your own table to provide information in your area, we can provide you with those resources.
Okay.
You can also, we're going to be having lobbying day. That's going to be coming up in March sometime.
Okay.
Definitely, we would love to have as many of the community there to help with that.
This has been amazing. This has been awesome. This has been gems. You've been dropping some gems. It's just a thing. Use words. Just a thing. Use words. People really gonna appreciate this. I want to give you the last word. Anything you want to leave with community, with people, the viewers, the listeners. Take us home.
Community. Cultivating. When you envision what you want to see inside your own house, it has to take place inside the whole community for that to happen.
Okay.
And so, like I said, as a mother, if you can save the mother, then you can save the community. But at the same time, if you harm the mother, destroy the mother, you can destroy the whole community. So I would say us as people who have lost the most, not just mothers, but people who have been impacted by violence and by murder, who have given up that biggest sacrifice. those of us that are able and are willing, we are, one of the biggest helps with change.
Rafiah, I appreciate it. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
This was refreshing. It was calm. It was easy,
Yeah.
even though the topics wasn't. So thank you. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep building. Keep empowering. Keep fighting, and keep just putting out good energy. And can't wait to have you back. Part
Okay,
two.
well, thank you. I appreciate it.
And, so you'll be updating us, and then we can dive deep into police.
Well, in that case, I'll be coming in my own. I'm not representing nobody but Rafiah today.
Right. Exactly. Well, Rafiah, appreciate it. Until next time.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me.